Hey guys, what's up? This is FreeNightJustForHunted1.com. In this video, we're going to talk about facing a 4-bet after making a 3-bet ourselves. And yeah, basically we're going to talk about the data. I'm going to show you guys some exploits, and then we'll talk about some common mistakes. And for each of these, there's not an awful lot to say, basically, because we're already pretty deep into the hand and there's not an awful lot of exploits that we can utilize. There's a few. But still, the scope is very limited whenever we face a 4-bet. Usually, like, we either grip it in, we call, or we fold, and there's no like future mistakes that our opponent can make, usually. Not an awful lot, at least. So data suggests that pool under 4-bets out of position, which is something we talked about in the previous video and would be a reason to 3-bet a bit more often. And then there are no more major mistakes versus 5-bet jams. In other words, if we go in, we should expect our opponent to roughly find the calls that he should be finding, and at least like call at roughly the correct frequencies. So what you're looking at here is a chart that shows you the cutoff 4-betting range versus a 3-bet by the button. So cutoff opens, button 3-bets, small blind, big blind folds, and now the cutoff has the option to either call, fold, or raise, and this is the chart. And we can see that hands as weak as 10-8 suited, Jack-9 suited, King-9 suited, A7 suited, even 6-5 suited, 7-6 suited, pocket 7s are going to be in this range, in this 4-betting range, at some frequency. And it's very, very convenient to just call your suited hands a bit more often, call these weaker pocket pairs a bit too often, miss the King 6 4-bet some of the suited aces, and suddenly you're in a position where you're not 4-betting enough, as the pool is doing, which means that the in-position player has an incentive to 3-bet wider, like we discussed in the previous video. But not only that, like the times that we do face a 4-bet, we're up against a stronger range, and so now it makes sense to under-defend slightly. So just start overfolding hands in different hands to a 4-bet, and a little bit later in the video I'll show you guys a range, basically the range of when the button now faces the 4-bet by the cutoff. So and then we can sort of see, okay, which hands are indifferent, and how would that look like? What would that look like if we start overfolding? So let's talk some exploits. Like the main exploits that we can find here is a very obvious one. If someone is not finding, let's say, the thinner 4-bets that they should be finding, so in the, like basically same as this chart where we just, let's say villain is not finding 10-9 suited, King 6 suited, Ace 8 suited, or even like Ace 10 suited, King 10 suited, King Jack suited as often as they should, and they lean more towards calling those hands or folding, then the times that we do get 4-bet, we face a range that just consists of too many premiums. And so the question then becomes, do we still want to defend Queen Jack suited, Ace 3 suited, pocket 5s, pocket 6s, pocket 7s facing the 4-bet, or are we able to just start folding those right away? And even a hand like Ace 5 suited here captures about 0.07 big blinds in EV, and it's very, very close to being break even. If someone starts under 4-betting quite significantly, this becomes losing quite a bit. So yeah, that's definitely something to take into consideration. Start overfolding the indifferent hands first. So all the mixes make sense to just get rid of those. But if someone is just particularly nitty, then you want to play a range that looks quite a bit different from this, and we might just want to fold all the suited connectors, all the weak pocket pairs, all the suited aces, and ace-queen offsuit. And maybe some of like the weaker broadways, like Jack 10 suited, Queen Jack suited. So overfold versus the nitty 4-bets, basically. Common mistakes: calling too often versus 4-bets out of position, and then in particular, missing the unnatural 5-bet jams. So if you look at this chart, for instance, this is whenever the button opens, the small blind 3-bets, big blind folds, and then the button 4-bets, and then we are playing on the small blind, facing that 4-bets. button versus small hand. And you can see that there's quite a few hands that actually just want to jam pre-flop. So there's hands like ace-7 suited, ace-5 suited, ace-4 suited. In particular, ace-5 suited and ace-4 suited, people might find occasionally. But ace-7 suited is relatively unintuitive, I think. And even like this, the pairs, in some pools, you'll see those get called quite a bit too often. And then you're basically giving your opponent the incentive to just 4-bet too wide. Now, again, we know that the pool, typically speaking, is not 4-betting as wide as they should. And so the question then becomes, do we want to jam hands like this? I think the answer is basically lies in the fact that we want to jam a slightly tighter range and then call a significantly tighter range. That's basically the expert that you want to find versus guys that are not 4-betting often enough. Alright, so that's it for this video. If you guys have any questions, hit me up in the chat and talk to you guys soon. Bye.